Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. So, Rosa, where are you? Oh, there. You pronounced Elisha correctly. Okay, but I learned Elisha as a kid, and old habits die hard. So when I pronounce his name differently than you, you're correct. Okay, yeah. Naaman, in our first reading today, has it all. Power, wealth, strength, fame. He's the great and victorious champion of the king of Syria. And though victorious in battle, he is feared by others. He's defeated enemy after enemy, and yet, except for one enemy, he has been victorious. All of his power, his fame, his gold, his silver, his horses, his spears, none of them can help him with his leprosy. Leprosy is a horrible skin disease. His skin is literally rotting away. And here's the crazy and embarrassing thing for lepers like Naaman. He has to make his leprosy known to everyone he meets. Since leprosy is so highly contagious, if someone comes near to him on the road, even close to him on the road, he has to boldly and loudly declare, "I am a leper, I'm leper." They can avoid him that way. So as powerful as Naaman is, really, Naaman would have tried everything, you see. All the best doctors, the most expensive treatments. He would have probably even visited a couple of faith healers. Yet in our story, Naaman's help comes from a very unlikely place. It seems that in his military campaigns against the people of Israel, that Naaman has seized and enslaved a very young girl. And he gave this girl to his wife to serve as her handmaiden. This girl is a slave, a prisoner of war, as it were, a child so delicate and so vulnerable, the text literally refers to her as a young little girl. This young, powerless girl offers up an impossible promise. If only my lord Naaman were with the prophet who is in Samaria, Elisha would cure him of his leprosy. Despite desperate times call for desperate measures, and so Naaman convinces his king to write a letter to the king of Israel, asking the prophet to heal this leprosy-ridden general. Now, Elisha has been on a tear recently, a tear of miracles. The Bible interrupts the telling of Israel's war stories there in 2 Kings to tell of the flurry of miracles that Elisha has been up to. There is no doubt that his credentials are known by all. Elijah is the real deal, the bee's knees, the cat's meow. And so that we know that Naaman's request is genuine, he sends along with the letter of his king a tidy little sum of silver and gold that is worth more than $3 million by today's value. That would certainly trump this trick, so that Naaman might just hold the winning hand. So here comes the great General Naaman into town, returning to the land that he has so recently and skillfully plundered with military might, most likely riding into town like a military victory parade. He arrives at Elisha's house with all his soldiers and servants and aides, but the prophet Elisha does not come out to greet him. There is no ceremony, no welcoming committee, no reception. Instead, a lowly messenger comes out to greet the general and says, the prophet says, "Go and wash 7 times in the river Jordan, and your flesh shall be restored." Naaman's response, he was outraged, humiliated, angrily ranting about how surely for a man as important as he was, there ought to have been a great ceremony, and the prophet could have at least come out. Naaman believed that he should be cured in a public and powerful way, equal to his own military status. Furthermore, he has seen the Jordan River during his military campaign recently, And he knows that the Jordan River is not very impressive. In fact, by the standards of the rivers in Syria near Damascus, they're dirty. It's dirty. You come out dirtier than when you went in. Look at what happens next then. Naaman's anger is quelled not by his closest family or fellow soldiers, but by servants, by his slaves, by the lowliest of his traveling companions. Father, they say to him, if the prophet had commanded you to do something really difficult, some great quest of honor or labor, wouldn't you have done it? All he said to you was wash and be clean. Why not do it? Amazingly, Naaman humbles himself and he listens to the servant, takes off his fine robes and glittering armor, and he descends down into the muddy little river Jordan, a tiny little creek, and he bathes 7 times. Astonishingly, he is healed. His skin disease is washed away, and his flesh becomes as supple as a young boy, which I find just fascinating. Now, let me invite you to think and reflect about what we might learn from this today. In our minds, we often think that bigger is better. We can become impressed and obsessed with size. We're enamored with power and by measurement of wealth or stealth or strength or fame. Big things matter, right? Big bank accounts, big biceps, big successes. We think that to matter, to be important, we must be movie gods or rock stars or millionaires. We think that if we were just a little stronger, a little richer, a little more successful, then we'll have it made and we'll be happy. But like Naaman, things will not make us happy. In our story today, Naaman almost kept himself from getting well because of his obsession with power, his own importance. God does not care how strong your investment portfolio is, or how many Facebook friends you have, or where you fall on Time Magazine's list of most important people. When you are omnipotent, like God is, when you are all-knowing, size doesn't impress. So God spoke to Naaman not through a famous prophet, but through a young little girl who cared for him. Now, maybe it's cliche to say that God is in the small stuff. You've heard that before. Yet time and again the Bible drives home that God's preferences flip ours upside down. God uses a muddy creek instead of a mighty river, uses a humble little girl to arrange Naaman's healing, and uses a humble servant in order to move a mighty warrior. The bottom line, everything's heading to this. You ready? Perhaps a mighty congregation such as Zion would do well to listen to the young boys and girls among us. Perhaps a congregation like ours, that is a flagship congregation of this synod, should follow the heart of our youth and allow our eyes to be opened when we become blinded by our own desires. I'd like to quote the great Albus Dumbledore, if I might. It is a curious thing, Dumbledore said, but perhaps those who are best suited to power are those who have never sought it. Youth cannot know how age thinks and feels, but old men are guilty if they forget what it was like to be young. And again, even more powerfully from Dumbledore, age is foolish and forgetful when it underestimates youth. And here is the truth. The closer our youth are to the center of the life of this congregation, the healthier our congregation will be. Think back to the glory days, to the days in which you say, those were the good old days, and you'll remember that youth were important to this congregation at that time in its history. Let me ask you a pointed question. Do you know that it is critical to engage our youth in all that we do? In all that we do. To make it even more pointed, do the youth of Zion know in this congregation just how important they are? Let them know. Let them know by your actions, by your words, by your deeds. Stewardship, do you know what one of our most valuable assets is? They're the folks that are a little bit younger than me. In the end, you see, no one will care what we benched at the gym or banked in our accounts. No one will care how famous we were or how wealthy. All that will matter is the love that we shared and showed in the little things, in the everyday things. In our short little lives, it is easy to value fleeting glory. In God's eyes, God cares only for love that can be shared. So let us humble ourselves in the waters as God came to us in the gift of baptism. Let us serve like little girls and humble servants, for there we will find the healing and forgiveness of sins that is already ours. Thanks be to God.